What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and if you're like me, you find it absolutely hilarious that those on the internet that are constantly complaining about literally everything, about how bad their life is, how terrible everything is, and how everyone has so much of this, what they call privilege, that they fail to see the ironic thing that the very fact that you would complain about characters in a video game is the literal definition of privilege. That you would expect us to believe your life is hashtag literally the worst. But you have time to whine and complain about video game characters. I'm not kidding. Resident Evil's Village, Duke, represents a tired trope of fat shaming. Generally, if somebody says the word trope, it's okay to ignore their opinions. There are multiple articles written on this. Let's take a look at the one from thegamer.com. A rickety carriage is parked outside the Arcane Manor, sitting stationary in its snow-laden surroundings. A vague light shines on the door. Yes, again, I can already tell that this is somebody that may have some writing talent. They wish that they could get paid to write actual important stuff, but what they're writing is pointless internet fake outrage. Of course, this man, the Duke, is a merchant, a gravy-guzzling greedster who divides his waking hours into scoffathons and exonerate auctioneering, extortionate auctioneering. Jesus. I'd be surprised if he was anything else, really, because, quote, fat as a character trait is almost always synonymous with overindulgent or bad. Well, being fat as a fat person, I can feel like I'm coming from a place of not privilege, but knowledge. Yeah, you generally, the overwhelming percentage of cases of being fat are from overindulging. Now, yeah, okay. Yes, goiters or glandular problems, okay? You're like a tenth of percent. The overwhelming majority of people who are overweight is because they're overindulgent. That's just the fact. If the Duke was thin, hello Bowie, I'd have looked at him and mulled over a myriad of possibilities of what role he might play in the story. But with that breadbasket, come on, villain or fraudster, for sure. Well, there has been an overwhelming majority of evil, thin characters. How about the evil guy from the Borderlands series? How about the villain in Far Cry 5? There's been a million thin villains. And there's also been a lot of fat non-villain characters. This is absurd. The irony here is that Capcom specifically acknowledged this character design during the last week's Resident Evil Village showcase. The exact quote that stayed in my mind was this: the director wanted to give him a unique look, but as game video scholar Todd Harper pointed out last night, the fat merchant trope has appeared and reappeared throughout countless texts over the years, both in games and other forms of media. As a result, the Duke's design isn't very unique at all. It's more of the same. Farts in a wine glass. I'm far more intelligent than Capcom. Let me ask you this. Who's hurt by this? Mythical non-fat merchants in zombie films? Zombie video games? Exactly who is hurt by this? If you stop and actually think for a second, people who want to play video games, again, I know this is a bizarre thing, they want to just turn that part of their mind off and enjoy. And there's literally no problem with him being fat. I don't look at fat video game characters and go, oh my god, that video game character in the hypothetical situation is totally me, and I need to take to Twitter to be outraged by it. You'll see that this is always the same boring case. Spirited Away is a gorgeous film, but of course the greed of humans is symbolized by turning them into fat pigs. Okay, what's wrong with that? Like, quite literally, what's wrong with that? Who would sooner eat slop than acknowledge their daughter? In Full Metal Alchemist, greed isn't fat. However, gluttony is unable to think of anything other than excess. So, you might think that the act of being gluttonous is specifically related to food, but the seven deadly sins Merlin, known as the boar of sin of gluttony, is assigned to be thin-waisted and classically attractive. Her gluttony is represented by her insatiable thirst for power and knowledge, which is a bit more nuanced. Oh, that person is greedy, add a few pounds. Even Mr. Greedy from Mr. Men has a big tummy tank. Again, so? I'm genuinely curious who is hurt by this. There are plenty of fat characters that are not evil. I don't see a fat character and think, oh, they must be evil. That's just not the way actual normal people think. Now, when an evil character also happens to be fat, okay, yeah, Jabba the Hutt works as a giant fat blob. But that's, again, who's hurt by that? Why then has this become one of the most defining visual articulations of greed or some other form of badness? Look at Wario and Robotnik, or Metal Gear Solid 2's very creatively named Fat Man. This extends to the good guys too. Just look at Thor in Endgame. When thinking about how to best represent the fact that he had lost hope after the blip, the writers went straight to obese and Fortnite as an easy punchline. Oh, so it was funny. Again, as a fat guy, I thought it was funny. I was not offended by it. Imagine being offended by that. Literally. And this whole idea that greedy people aren't also fat is also ridiculous. Of course a lot of these greedy people are big fat slobs. Especially back in a time where the ability to get food, high-end food, and lots of it was a specifically rich thing to do. Now in America, everyone has access to terrible food at low prices. So poor people can be fat too. But back in the day, okay, it's not a trope. It was the ones with money that had who could afford to buy the rich foods and the wines and end up looking like this. Here you have this article, a second article, outraged by it. The Duke was introduced to audiences during Resident Evil Showcase, and there's no tactful way to say this. He's a really big guy, and his size is seemingly treated as a joke. Oh, heavens to Murgatroyd! The Duke takes place of the merchant character seen in Resident Evil 4. However, rather than being portrayed as a svelte, hooded figure in that game, the Duke is first seen when he opens up his cart of goods and becomes spilling out of the back, stomach first. It's a bizarre sight, and some people have seen this moment as an example of fat phobia. Nobody actually believes this. People look all day for things to be outraged by on the internet. I guess I don't know what to say. If you're outraged, okay, if you identify with a fat evil merchant, lose weight. All right? I don't know what else to tell you. In a time here in 2021 when that's not okay to say, guess what? I'm 100 pounds overweight. I get to say it. I'm trying to give up soda. I'm cutting way back on a lot of things. I'm drinking water more now. I need to lose weight. All right. Now I'm not losing weight because I'm offended by a fictional fat character in a video game. I'm losing weight because I'm working extremely hard at trying to build something, and I'd rather not croak off of a heart attack at 41 years old. If you're offended by fat characters being the butt of a joke, just work on losing weight. Yes, I know it's not easy for everybody, okay? But if you are offended by it, then it is clearly a very important thing to you, and therefore should prioritize, instead of playing video games and being offended by it, lose weight, get in shape, go to therapy, learn some self-confidence. There's nothing inherently bad about being overweight. Being overweight doesn't make you a bad person, but let's not pretend that getting 100 pounds overweight is just a thing. You get there by being overindulgent and not having self-control and not practicing portion control. All right? Yes, a tiny percentage of people have a health problem that they can't deal with. Okay, fine, let's put them in a different pile. The other 99% of people overweight got there by their own decision making. And what this fat phobia is really just an extension of that. The same type of people don't want anybody to take any responsibility for literally anything they do in their lives. Look, cut the soda out, cut the booze out, cut the deep fried food, and maybe don't identify with hypothetical, mythical video game characters. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.